Today we're talking about school reunion.
And by the best one, I mean it will always be the best one because anything with Sarah J.
Yeah, like immediately I want to point out that last week I didn't know who wrote this episode. I don't know who I assumed wrote it, but I didn't know that Toby Whithouse wrote it. I like him a lot, though.
Which other ones did he do?
The vampire one, the one last year with the ghosts and the
God complex. Every hotel room has someone's greatest fear in it.
Oh yeah, can't wait to get to that one.
Yeah,
it's a long way off.
I don't have any connection with Sarah, so it's not really an episode for me.
I feel like it's a very serviceable episode. Like it reintroduces Sarah Jane.
Good, is what we're saying. It's not great.
At the same time, it's got one giant thing holding it back. You get 3 guesses about what it is.
Gross, isn't it?
Scene with her and Sarah, pretty sweet though. Everything
Everything
else about her is pretty bad.
Not sure how I feel about that scene, but we'll get to that.
This is one of my favorites of the season, as well. It introduces Sarah Jane Smith, who was my favorite companion of classic Doctor Who. And plus, I really like her spin-off, The Sarah Jane Adventures.
Tried watching that and then, didn't.
On the subject of the Sarah Jane Adventures, for a long time I only saw the first season because that was the only one aired in the US.
Did we just do, one stream about Sarah Jane Adventures?
I don't know if I have anything to say about that show, except that, I'm not the audience for that show.
Yeah, I always thought of it as Doctor Who is the one for families, Torchwood is the one for adults, Sarah Jane Adventures is the one for kids.
That's the plan, and you can debate how adult Torchwood is really, but there's no debating that Sarah Jane Adventures skews really young, and I don't know if it works for me.
I haven't really seen the episodes where the Doctor shows up in them. It's okay. I mean, like you said, it's not really for us.
I guess the best way I could put it is that Sarah Jane Adventures feels like the type of Doctor Who show that I would write once I first stumbled upon Doctor Who.
It's a fan fiction.
It's not in terms of plot, but in the way that it feels, like fan fiction. That's a talk for a different time, probably. I don't know.
Also, K9 is in it.
As far as the critique goes, you're not a Sarah Jane fan. I mean, there's really nothing here for you.
It's necessarily true. We've got giant bat creatures, one of whom is played by Anthony Head.
Giles in Doctor Who, and his presence rivals David Tennant's, and it's awesome to watch.
Was it you, Edward, who showed me that video that was, talking about just his screen presence and the way that he plays it like Dracula almost? When he's standing over people and just silently being a creep, and it's really cool.
That was me.
Yeah. I wish he got a little bit more to do, 1 or 2 scenes more of material for him, but what he does have, he's really, really good with.
Facial expressions are pretty hilarious.
Before we get into weird action climax territory, he's being really cool. I also like that, the scene where he's the doctor's do you really think that you're trustworthy with this Scasis paradigm? And he's like, no, but you are. It feels like we don't get villains all that often who are just no, Doc, we want to follow you. You can be the new God figure. And that's great, especially in this era, because it feels like we're seeding things for, Time Lord Victorious.
Yeah.
And he, really considered for a minute, and it's kind of terrifying that, if Sarah Jane wasn't there to deliver that speech, he probably would have taken him up on that deal. They had this thing called the Scasis paradigm, which was, this super equation or whatever.
Super equation where you can practically alter the universe to how you want it to be.
Okay, so I really don't understand what is wrong with that.
Basically, they want to become gods, like the Time Lords.
Yeah, they can just literally reshape reality. I didn't even think about this until just now, but I need to find out whether this aired before or after the American Dragon Jake Long episode that's literally this exact same premise, which is just taking a bunch of, middle school kids and having them crack this all-powerful God equation with computers and stuff. I need to know which episode came first. That's too weird.
There was a Doctor Who episode based on an episode of American Dragon.
You're just going to segue us into talking about fan fiction all night. I can't. Yeah, Lucy, the deal is they literally reshape reality. Technically it would work, but it's just hey, Doctor, you could pretty much bring the Time Lords back with a snap of your fingers. And he's like, oh, I could totally do that.
It's better than Davros's reality bomb.
We'll get to that. That's weird.
why can't they just go ahead and do it? I mean, they could literally make the whole universe perfect. I don't see them as the bad guys here as long as their intentions are good.
Considering that they invade other races and take stuff from their biology to add on to theirs, they probably don't have the best intentions.
Plus the fact that he's, eating children.
And the fact they ate one in the pre-title sequence.
Theoretically, once they crack the code, they could just bring all those dead children back to life. But at the same time, the reason that it's a big deal is because this episode is about moving on. Doing that would be the exact opposite of moving on. That's why I really don't like Rose in this episode. I don't think I'd actually change much. Her and Sarah Jane both have to realize that the Doctor is going to leave them behind at some point, or he's going to outlive them. And so at some point, either they or he is going to have to move on with their lives. Things change, and it's probably for the better if you just let nature take its course. And so that's why Sarah Jane has that speech. And I think she could only have given that speech after her and Rose come to that epiphany. And so she's like, no, Doctor, you could make the universe exactly the way you want it, but then it's stagnant. Then nothing changes. What's the point?
No progress.
I mean, I get what they're trying to go for in this episode, like you said, but it feels like they're kind of just letting down the universe to make this metaphor.
But at the same time, anyone who starts thinking like that, to paraphrase Joss Whedon, once someone starts thinking like that, you kind of have to shut them down a little bit. And again, knowing what we know specifically about 10 and his power complex that will become a big deal in later episodes, maybe him being in charge of the universe wouldn't be what's best for everyone.
Now, if Malcolm Tucker took over the universe, oh god.
Let Captain Jack take over the universe. It'd be a non-stop orgy all the time.
Hi, Captain Jack Harkness. Hi, Captain Jack Harkness. Hi, Captain Jack Harkness. Hi, 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 hi.
Why would do what the Master did and make everybody look like himself too?
He would literally screw himself.
Jessica Jones, David Tennant is like, I once told a man to screw himself. Can you imagine? I mean, I think that works as a theme of the episode, but at the same time, Rose
is still irritating.
I don't actually have much notes that are just about Sarah, independent of everyone else. Like I said, that this episode felt like a Sarah Jane era classic episode, or at least based on the ones I've seen, where it's we're infiltrating an institution, we're doing an investigative thing, there's not much timey-wimey stuff, it's just find out what the deal is.
Not wimey stuff, timey-wimey stuff.
So was Sarah on at the time, or was this a setup for her own show?
It was the setup for Sarah Jane.
Well, yeah, it is, because she ends up getting K9 Mark IV that plays a pretty big role in the first 4 seasons of the show.
Then again, the very first episode of the show, K9 is blocking a black hole or something.
Because of legal battles between who created K9 and the BBC, because you can't just have people enjoy Doctor Who.
The Australian K9 thing.
Yeah, that redesigned him so he was the blue Robo Pet, if anybody remembers those toys.
That was really bizarre, man. Sarah Jane hasn't said a word to Rose. This is not the first time that Rose has left the Doctor for a period of time, come back to find him now cavorting with a stranger, as far as she knows. The instant she walks up to the Doctor and Sarah Jane, doesn't know what they're doing together, doesn't have anything to infer any kind of relationship. She gets the face and says, who's she? Immediately.
And I'm just damn it.
Gets the Linda face and is like, who's she? Immediately. It's infuriating. I mean, Sarah Jane gets in on the pettiness. When she, indirectly insults Rose's intelligence, she's doing it sort of by accident. Goes out of her way to say, Rose, I hope you don't feel threatened by me. That's kind of a pompous thing to say, but at the same time, it needs to be said. But Rose is the one who's always being antagonistic and defensive, and it wouldn't be so bad if it didn't start immediately before she even understands who Sarah Jane is.
I mean, at least they start getting along later when they start laughing about the Doctor talking at 1,000 miles an hour.
Because
so funny to me.
Their problem is him, not each other. Everything that they're terrified about or feeling insecure about is because of him.
Apparently David Tennant came in painted as a kitten. on his face.
Really?
Yeah, he came on with like face paint as a kitten to get them like to genuinely laugh.
Enforced method acting.
At
To
least he
move forward.
didn't pull a Jared Leto.
Yeah, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if Rose wasn't a character that I already disliked. From her end especially, it's just a pissing contest where it's I'm better than you. That's not fun. I gotta make a point that she's just as shallow about it as she is with Trisha Delaney in Boomtown, where in that episode she makes a crack about how Trisha Delaney is like overweight, and here most of her insults to Sarah are just like, oh, you're old. You're an old person. As far as petty catfight banter goes, that's not endearing.
It shuts her down by mentioning that she's seen the Loch Ness Monster.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say about Rose, thankfully. Hopefully one day we'll do an episode where she doesn't do something to piss me off.
Question, maybe this is just because I didn't watch the full thing and can't remember. Mickey contribute anything at all?
Sort of. It's weird.
Epiphany that he's the tin dog.
So, the end of the episode where Mickey's like, I want to come along, and Rose doesn't even look at him and is just like, oh, yeah, sure, I guess, whatever. That's even worse when you think of the beginning of the episode where she's on the phone with him. When you phoned us home to talk about this alien conspiracy, I thought maybe you just called me home to call me home. And she's got like this hopeful look on her face. It's like, what is your relationship? Do you want to spend time with Mickey or not? What is wrong with you, woman?
I guess love triangle, if you want to call it that, is so badly done.
Self-destructive.
And I'm convinced that Mickey would let it go if Rose didn't keep stringing him along and giving him hope.
This doctor finally talks to Rose about having companions and stuff like that, and he goes, okay, I basically stay the same, or I don't age as fast, and that's the curse of the Time Lords. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's like you have a whole race of people that were just like you and could live like you.
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think what companions have died.
The implication there's supposed to be that it's not necessarily always death, that maybe it's just like Sarah Jane, and the fact that she's aging at all makes it weird. I don't know.
Were the doctor and her like together, like romantically?
No, they were more like best friends, but there was a hint that they were getting closer and closer.
Yeah, it was the classic series, so we couldn't really get, like, flirty with it unless it was Romana sometimes.
I mean, the best innuendo you can get in the classic series is taking a line out of context.
Like the Dominators, yeah. But I feel like what we got with 4 and Sarah is sort of what we have with 11 and Amy and Rory, where it's completely platonic, but at the same time, they're constantly getting closer and closer, and that might not be healthy. And then we go, like, extreme on that end with Clara.
I mean, I don't know how to take it, because like I said, I haven't seen the classic series, but I don't know if this is Russell T. Davies trying to make like almost a love triangle for the episode. When Mickey said the Mrs. and the X, that's indicating that his girlfriend.
I'm actually willing to give Russell the benefit of the doubt and assume that he didn't have anything to do with that in this episode. I think what happened was, and I wasn't there so I can't be remotely sure, but I feel like what happened is House comes up with the basic plot for this episode, realizes that he wants to make it about moving on with your life and moving forward, and decides that in order to make Sarah Jane and Rose relevant to that theme, he's gonna play it like a metaphor for a romantic relationship. But then the rest of the series is pushing them to be romantic so much that it stops being a metaphor in this episode. It's not that I don't see the romance, I see it. I didn't see it with 9 and Rose. It's impossible not to see it with 10 and Rose. We open the season with them having a picnic on his jacket and, like, romantic music.
Even before that, like I said, it's still there. They're trying to push these two into a relationship. I think they're already boyfriend and girlfriend, even though they don't want to, like, say it for some reason. I don't know why they have to be so secretive about it.
I just see it as, like, the doctor isn't thinking about it as romantic yet, and Rose doesn't want to talk about it because then it'll be weird.
I think the problem with the whole thing is they try to keep it like, okay, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but they try to keep it like almost secret. I don't understand why.
What, you mean like secret from the audience?
Yes, I mean, they're trying to like be vague about it.
I mean, vague isn't the word. I think I get what you're trying to say, but I don't think vague is the word that fits that description.
Encouraging shipping. They're definitely
ship baiting.
encouraging ship dating.
It's just, the whole thing's confusing. It's like, okay, we want to have these two as a couple, but we don't want to say they're a couple. It's like, you're having them a couple or don't. Just stop.
What you're describing is sexual tension.
I understand that part of it too, but it's like behind closed doors, they're already together. That's what it comes off to me.
I guess
Just to somewhat move away from this topic, and Edward is gonna love that I say this. I think that this episode suffers from, like, not enough time syndrome or a misuse of its time. Like,
45-minute syndrome.
I think the best version of this story could still be told in 45 minutes of the villains, and I want a little bit more of Rose and Sarah Jane, like, reaching a synthesis, because the way it seems, it's like they're arguing and being really stupid and petty, and then they just resolve it over the course of a single conversation, and I don't feel that that's natural. And the one thing that I would get rid of completely so that we could have that is Kenny.
who?
The kid.
Oh my god, they killed
nothing.
Kenny!
Kenny blew up.
Somebody was gonna say that.
He does nothing for this episode. That the kids are in danger, and Mickey goes in with the car and saves the kids, and that's the biggest contribution he makes to this episode. Did he leave any impression on you guys? I don't know.
No,
he didn't.
at all.
Not that he had a name or lines or
Yeah, like
any dude.
All I know is
I mean,
his
like-
name was Kenny, and he didn't die.
They should have died then. That's the one made it memorable.
Oh my god, they killed Kenny! You bastards!
5 minutes is a long time in, like, screen terms, and I think that's about how much time we waste on just following this kid around. Maybe it's just that because this episode is set in the school, you want a member of the student body to be a presence in the story, but
He's not a presence.
he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he doesn't have presence.
I forgot all about him until you even mentioned.
When are we going to talk about K9?
Be the best companion.
It's like Doctor Logic. Sorry, I'm not coming back for you again, but here's a robot dog.
I'd take a robot dog.
There was like that failed pilot for a proposed spin-off called K9 Company with Sarah Jane and K9 Mark III that didn't take off.
And then we did
But
the
the-
other aforementioned one in Australia.
Feels like there's a lot of things that people want to know about Doctor Who. Should we
What'd you
talk
say?
about, like, the enemy's design?
The Krillitanes, they're
Seems very
cool,
much
but
like-
the CGI is painfully dated.
It's TV, like, over a decade ago. I'm willing to let it slide.
They look too cartoony, the design, to me, to take it seriously. And it doesn't help that Giles is literally going around making funny faces.
Yeah, his faces are weird. Maybe it's just, like, preference and, like, creature design, but I like bat creatures, like creatures with sharp claws and, like, 4 limbs and stuff. So I don't know. It worked for me.
They look a little too cartoony.
Probably that's another, like, emulating the classic show thing. Feels like the type of design that if they had the money, the classic show would try to do in practical effect.
Also, there's a lot of green and gray and white in this episode. We're back to green and gray and white.
I noticed the Doctor is kind of a to Mickey, too.
Nobody likes Mickey.
No one's nice to Mickey, except Martha Jones.
Well, they get
Like-
married, so...
He has the one line where he's, like, chastising Mickey for screaming like a girl, which I thought was really funny. Picturing a little girl, 9 or 10 years old, with pigtails and a frilly skirt. I love how when the Doctor makes that line, Mickey actually, like, motions to his head as if he has pigtails.
The only thing I think of when I hear that line is the line from X-Men, where he's like, if you don't stop smoking in here, I'll make you believe you're a 6-year-old girl with pigtails. You can do that? I'd have Jean braid your hair.
Yeah, I feel like that has to be like an ad-lib or a little thing on Noel Clarke's part. I didn't write it down exactly which moment it was this episode, but I feel like we got a fair share of moments where it's like, no, at least on Mickey and the Doctor's part, there's a lot of camaraderie there. Like, the two of them like each other.
Yeah, they're starting
feel-
to be bros.
Yeah.
I agree with that at all, going back over it. I mean, there's so many little lines where he just treats them like garbage.
Mickey, sit in the car and wait with K9.
No, he's like, be sure to crack a window open. The Tin Dog, why does he need a window open? I wasn't talking about for him. Like, on the one hand, that's really condescending, but on the other hand, it's like, well, I mean, he doesn't want you to, like, die in the car over him in a twisted kind of way.
I think the problem is the 10th Doctor, we all like him so much when he's acting like a complete we don't like to admit it.
10 is being a real jerk.
10's acting is so good that the 10th Doctor can get away with a lot of it.
Pretty much ever since Aliens of London and World War III, I feel like the two of their relationship is a lot more amicable than anyone gives it credit for.
At least he stopped calling him Ricky.
Mickey respects him. Like, he calls him boss and stuff, and it's real affectionate.
Ricky seems to have some respect for the Doctor to a point, but the Doctor doesn't seem to have any respect for him. I think it's kind of petty, and it really seems just because of Rose.
Maybe, but at the same time, that's like a recurring thing with 10, where he's sort of dismissive of people.
His whole relationship with Martha in Series 3.
Well, I wouldn't really say he's dismissive of her. Like he has no respect for her, like Mickey, it seems.
He's just completely oblivious.
That's a whole bag of fish that we are going to have to unpack when we get there, because their relationship has a lot of stuff going on.
And it's surprisingly the one that I relate to the most out of the relationships between Doctor and Companion.
And I feel like all I have left to say about this episode is that one line that Anthony Head has where he's like, forget the shooty dog thing.
K9 Mark III's sacrifice still gets me every time I watch it. Move over, Amy's goodbye, and Angels take Manhattan. K9 Mark III's death is more emotional on me.
Affirmative.
I feel like if we'd sat in that moment a little bit longer, I'd be more emotional, but yeah, it's effective.
K9 is just so lovable.
His face doesn't have any visible emotion, and for that matter, his voice doesn't really either.
A little bit of emotion when he's saying goodbye to the Doctor.
I don't know, it's less that he has no emotion in his face, and more he has every emotion.
He doesn't even have a face.
Yeah, I can tell when he's sad or when he's happy.
Well, that's
based
because...
on like the positioning of
this review is all over the place.
But yeah, I really like that one line of dialogue because it feels super Joss Whedon-y.
Why do they have to use children for this?
Because children are one of the main Doctor demographics.
I remember now they said because children have creativity in their brains.
Yeah, children do have a lot of creativity. Public education system crushes most children's spirit and their imagination dies.
the idea of adults valuing practicality or just having logic more ingrained into their system.
Although, as I am now legally an adult, I can confirm that this is not the case.
Think of like this study that was like, they got a bunch of kids and they were like kindergarten age and they were like, we want you to list every single thing you could possibly do with a paperclip. Like got like 300 ways and then they got them back as like 18-year-olds and like list everything you can do with the paperclip 15.
We're thinking about it too hard. It's just an excuse for this episode to take place in a school.
Yes.
We're overthinking it.
Like, the idea of kids is more creative than adults is like a truism. Like, even if it's not really true, it's true enough.
It's like the real ending is when the Doctor gives Sarah Jane a proper goodbyes for her to have closure.
Yeah.
It's
see,
so cute.
It's all about that closure.
K9 Mark IV appears. Yay!
Yay! Paint job.
Final thoughts and score out of 10.
Nick doesn't do scores out of 10.
I'm not doing a score out of 10, so I'll just say I like it.
It's good.
Not my favorite episode from Whithouse, but it's good.
I love it.
It's a good
9
episode.
out of 10.
You like it more than the next episode?
What's the next episode?
Yeah, Girl in the Fireplace.
Yeah!
Oh no, that's one of my top 5.
I like Girl in the Fireplace a lot.
Goodbye.
Wow.
Bye!
It's like the most chaotic one of these weeks.
Knows what it's like to be the bad man.